right. Well, thank you to everyone who was able to make it this Monday morning. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about reminder messaging. Presentation today will be about 10 to 15 minutes, and then I'll leave some space for Q&A at the end. Reminder messaging is really important when you're running exchanges. It's your opportunity to invite people to join an exchange again and to make sure that you maintain momentum in participation. So before we get started talking about reminder messaging, I'm going to remind you, as we do at the start of every masterclass, that there are 2 hashtags that you can use if you want to participate on social media. And there's a chat function in Zoom. And so we'll leave some space for Q&A at the end, but if you have any urgent questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. Make sure that when you're using the chat that you change the "to" everyone in the meeting as opposed to all panelists, so that everyone participating can see your questions and learn from them as well. And before we get started, I see a couple familiar faces on the attendee list, but for those who haven't attended one of these webinars before, my name is Tila Beischer, and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Thoughtexchange. I work with partners in 2 different ways. So first, I help them plan and execute successful exchanges, and then I also help them to improve adoption in their organizations. The other thing that I run are these weekly events. So I run masterclasses and getting started workshops. And my objective with these 2 types of events is to show you how you can really effectively plan your own exchanges, how you can maximize participant interest and engagement, and how you can understand results in a really actionable, practical, and tangible way. And thinking about that maximize participant interest, that's what we're talking about today. And so thinking about reminder messages, we're going to talk all about how you can use them to improve participation while your exchange is live. A reminder is any notification that you send out to your participant group while the exchange is live, asking them to hop into it and to rate and add more thoughts. So today we're going to talk a little bit about content. So what does the content of those reminders look like? We're going to talk about frequency. So how often should you send them? Is sending them daily a good idea, weekly a good idea? And then also about delivery method. And then we're going to wrap up. I'm going to hop into a Discover dashboard with you and tour you through what tools exist that you can use to make your reminders more engaging. So thinking about reminder content, it's all about getting clear on the why. So you can imagine that you've launched your exchange, you've sent out your invitation email, and you saw some initial boost in participation, but after a couple of days, you notice that drop off. As soon as you notice that drop off, what I recommend is sending out a reminder. And they can be emails, they could be word of mouth, they could be social media. What's important when you're thinking about the how, and we'll dig into this a little bit more later, is that it's how your organization, your community, your network already communicates. You're leveraging tools and communication strategies that already exist. But however you choose to deliver them, they're really important to ensuring that the thoughts that are rated later in the exchange still have a lot of active participation in them. And so you can see here the first note on this slide is that the reminders are engaging and demonstrate the why. If you're thinking about how many emails that you get in a day, how many do you read through thoroughly? And how can you make your own emails of reminder content a little bit more effective? And so that might be including in your subject line the why. Maybe we need your voice, or we can hear from you now, or this is your opportunity to add your voice. They're really important. The more engaging that they are, the more that people will respond to them. And so when you're thinking about what content to include, we have the why. You also want to be really clear on your time constraints. So perhaps we need your voice before this Friday. Join the exchange, it closes at 5 p.m. Be really clear with people on how long that they have to participate as a way to motivate them and incentivize action. If you've attended our past webinars, we've talked about setting deadlines as a way to motivate and incentivize, and being clear about those deadlines in the reminder messages that you send out will strengthen participation. The other thing that we have here is a really clear call to action. So that is a single action that you want people to take as a result of your reminder email, message, etc. And that's to click on the exchange and participate more. And so maybe your call to action is at the bottom of your reminder email, and it says something like, join the exchange now, and then put the link and share another thought and rate 5 to 10 thoughts of others. Or if you're sending out a reminder later in the exchange and you just want people to be rating thought, have your call to action be join the exchange here and just rate more thoughts, please. So that's content. And the three things to consider again are, why are you asking them for this? What are their time constraints? And what's the call to action? So keep those three things in mind. So once we're clear on content, we can talk a little bit about some templates that we have in place for you. And I'm going to show you exactly where to find those templates. And what I would recommend doing is use these as a getting off start or a starting point to jump off from, but also keep in mind that the more personalized that your invitations or your reminders are and your invitations are, the more likely that people are to recognize your tone and your voice and to want to participate to join the conversation. And so in order to actually find those templates, I'll be sending them out in a follow-up, but for you, the easiest place to go is to our help site, and you're likely familiar with this tool. Down here at the bottom, we have this area called Messaging Examples and Exchange Templates. And if you click on Emails, Invitations, and Reminders, there's a sample reminder message here. Prompts you to add in some images. And so you could use your Discover dashboard, actually grab a screenshot of how many people have participated, or you could even just grab a screenshot of one of those random thoughts from the exchange and put it in, and that would make it more engaging and personalized too. So copy paste from these, add whatever screen captures that you want, and notice here that we also have one with a word cloud. And the word cloud can be a really powerful visual to invite people to participate. Most people are already really familiar with the word cloud method and visualization representation, but for you as a refresher, your word cloud is showing you which words are the largest by frequency, and then how they connect to form topics shown by colors. And so you can see in this example here that I have, we can see the words that are the largest. This was an exchange about working remote, are office, communication, and you can see all the purple ones are kind of related. So work from home, balance, maintain, done, or communication, people, reach. And what you can do is share out the word cloud as unique for every single exchange and say, these are the words that are coming up so far. What are your thoughts on this topic? And that can kind of motivate and incentivize people. And so the next thing to consider when it comes to how often that you're sending your reminders is how long have you set your exchange up for? And that depends really on the objectives of your exchange. So if you're running something very general, 1 week can be a really good starting point for the duration of an exchange. Maybe you launch on a Monday and you close on a Friday. That gives people 5 business days to participate. If you wanted to switch it up, you could launch on a Wednesday and close on the Wednesday. Again, you're still leaving people the same amount of time to participate. If we were using that Monday to Friday example, I would recommend sending out 2 reminders. And so maybe one on the Wednesday, so a midway reminder saying these are the participation stats so far. This is our word cloud. Please hop back in and share and rate more thoughts. And then also one on the morning of the Friday. And so you're sending 1 midway and 1 final. Your midway reminder is more focused on this is what's happening so far. Please share more thoughts and rate more thoughts. And your final reminder is focusing on please hop back in and rate more thoughts so that we have more effective data. And then if you're thinking about a longer term exchange, so maybe you're doing a community-wide one, maybe you could leave it for 2 weeks. And in that case, you would want to do 2 midway reminders and a final day reminder. So you're boosting up the volume of the reminder messaging. And another thing that you can do if you're something like a school district or a nonprofit, so you're doing something with the community, an exchange with the community, you might want to leverage daily social media content. So what you could do in that case is do something like grab the top thought that day, put it into social media and say, we're welcoming you to join this conversation. What are your thoughts here? So thinking about frequency, we just talked about doing for standard for a 1 week exchange, a midway and a final day. For longer ones, you might want to do 2 midway ones and then a final day. If you're thinking about not delivering too many reminder messages, be really strategic to, your participation groups the best. What days do they open emails? If you send out a reminder email on a Saturday, likely not, people won't really click on it and work on it. You want to send it out on work days. And then another thing too is with shorter exchanges. So if you're only having a 3-day exchange, maybe you do send out a reminder every single day in the morning saying, hey, this is day 1, this is day 2, this is day 3. We're really rushed for time and it's a really high priority that you participate now. And so now we've chatted about frequency. Let's talk a little bit about delivery method too. And as I mentioned at the start, the most important thing when it comes to delivery method is to consider what communication tools are already in place that you can leverage to use with your participants. So if your organization communicates primarily over email, email is going to be your best bet. But if they prefer to communicate over an internal messaging system, which is something that we do internally here at Thoughtexchange, we'll actually post our exchanges in their own channel and then tag people as we need to ask them for their participation. So if you have chat or workplace tools, instant messengers, you can leverage those. If you are a school district or a school and you're looking to engage parents, think about what parent newsletters that you have in place or any parent messaging systems. Do you have a text message system or a virtual flyer that you send out? The more often that you can plug the link to participate in as many strategies as possible, the higher volume of participants that you'll catch. And then the other thing to consider too, looping back to that organization concept, is do you have any shared internal websites or organization only sites like an intranet? And could you create a space on that for exchanges and put any links there for exchanges and always be driving people to that same place? The other thing too that's maybe the most effective reminder tool is to do it actually in meetings. And meetings are happening virtually right now as we're doing here. And so most virtual meetings do have a chat function. So you could pop the link to participate into the chat. If you don't have time to participate in the meeting, so you don't want to block 10 minutes in the meeting to allow people to share and rate thoughts, you could actually pop the link in there and say, I'm going to email this to you. And people will participate afterwards. And so just really plugging it, being really clear about these are the expectations in person can drive participation. As a reminder, the more personable and authentic that you can be about asking for participation, the higher the drive, or the higher the drive of participation rate. And so doing that in person or virtual, as we're doing right now, can be a really strong way to do so. So what I want to do now is I want to hop into a Discover dashboard and actually show you a couple strategies that you can use. And that way you can see anything that you can find new ways to target things. So here we are in a Discover dashboard, and this is an exchange that we ran internally at Thoughtexchange recently, and I want to show you some ways that you could improve participation based on what we're seeing here, and then you can take that offline. So here we're looking at the exchange, we're looking at the overview, and I can see that 85 participants have joined the exchange. I have 106 thoughts, and I have 1,427 stars. If I was thinking about the percentage of my organization that is 85 people, maybe that's a third, that would indicate to me that I need to leave the exchange open for longer and send out more reminder messages because I want more people in the organization to share their voice. The other thing that I would look for here is using the survey questions as a tool to segment reminders. So you can imagine here, and I don't have a survey question on this exchange that's an example of this, but if I had asked a question like, what's your role in our organization? And I had different departments outlined, I could send out targeted emails to those departments with less or more participation. So if I had perhaps sales here as an option and I saw that only 5% of my participants so far were sales, maybe I would send out an email directly to my sales team or even pop into a sales meeting and say, hi, I'd love to welcome you to participate. Here's the link, please join by Friday. You can also think about using this tool if you have any multiple languages. So if you're a community or an organization that engages in English and French and you've reached out for your invitations in both English and French, maybe you want to consider, okay, I have 80% English participation, 20% French participation so far. Maybe I want to send out another reminder email targeting just those French participants, asking them to join again and rate more thoughts, or to invite others to participate too. So that's how you can leverage both the overview, consider how many people are there and how many people that you want to be there, and then what reminders do you need to send to get to that point. And then also using the survey questions as a way to target specified email reminders, in-person reminders, channel reminders, etc. The other tool as well is the word cloud, which we talked about before. But if you click on word cloud and then click on download, that's how you actually pull it off of your Discover dashboard. It'll download as a PNG file that you can then attach to your emails or your reminder messages. And then the other tool that we talked about when we looked at those templates was the concept of adding in a top thought too. And so today our very top thought is, if you're ever uncertain about a text-based interaction, don't hesitate to get the other person on the phone or Zoom to talk it out. Maybe I grab a screen share of that, put it into my reminder email for today and say, hey, this is the top thought. What do you think about it? And that would actually really give some practical and tangible understanding of where the conversation is at so far, which can motivate people who really agree with that thought or maybe really disagree with that thought to join the exchange. So you're grabbing those two polarities and inviting them to participate. And what I really like about that technique is that it grabs those people for whom something impersonal, like just a link, maybe they don't fully understand the concept, maybe they don't have buy-in into the exchange itself. Sharing what's actually going on can demonstrate a little bit of transparency and get them excited about, oh, this is actually a conversation and that's from one of my colleagues. I recognize thinking like that, and that can motivate them. So you might find that you're hearing from people who normally wouldn't participate just from an email or an ask. And then the other thing as well that I want to show you here in terms of reminders is the bars view as well. And some people will do this. This might be useful for you. These are the major themes that are coming up so far. What are your thoughts on these themes? And using the AI generating themes can be a really powerful way to do that. Perfect. So those are the details that I wanted to show you today in the Discover dashboard, and everything that I wanted to review with you in terms of actually creating exchanges. So what I'm going to do now is set up an exchange and invite you to participate via a link. And I'm going to ask you, what are your questions or your thoughts about reminder messages? So just type the question in. We're live in the room, so I'm going to skip the introduction and all of the settings. Click on launch, and then I will pop the link into our exchange here. There's no QR code today, but if you do want to join on your phone, you can just go to my.thoughtexchange.com and then type in this 9-digit code that you see here. So 952-216-995. I'll just pop that link in now so you can all see it. And I'll give you, we'll spend about 5 minutes participating, and then we'll come back on here to go through all of the top thoughts. All right, well, looks like we have a smaller exchange today, which is kind of nice because we'll be able to talk through all of the things that have popped up. And so here's a really good example, and we've seen this a couple times on masterclasses before. Notice how these thoughts are in gray instead of in white, like you might be used to seeing them. What that means is that less than 5 people have rated each thought, so it hasn't made it out of pending. And this can be something that you look for in your own Discover dashboards when you're running exchanges. You want every thought to make it out of pending, so to be rated so that it has that high volume of stars so that it can accurately be represented within your data. And so if you log on here into yours midway through and you see that you have a lot of thoughts that are in gray or in pending, that can be another prompt that you need to send out another reminder email. Get people to hop back in there and just ask them to star more thoughts. So let's talk through them. So at the very top, any advice on sending reminders if we want participants to go in and to share thoughts first, and then to go back at a later date to begin rating. I'm afraid if they only go in once at the start, the overall rating of all thoughts won't be as effective. That's such a great point. And so what I would recommend doing, and you'll see this in the template emails on the help site, is that The first one, so that midway reminder, is asking people to share and rate thoughts. And so that'll prompt people to add a higher volume of thoughts and a higher volume of rating. And then on that closing day email or reminder message that you send out in the morning, that you're asking people just to rate thoughts. So say we're up to this many thoughts and this many ratings. I want to be at here by the end of the day. Please hop in and rate more thoughts, and just be very clear about what you're asking. So the first one is share and star, and the second one is just star. And that'll help people know exactly what they're doing. And you can include that in the call to action in your reminder message. So the second question here is, as you continue prompting participation, do you affect understanding of the question? Will we unintentionally drive or steer conversations? That's a really good question there. And what I would say is, if you're doing things like sharing the word cloud or sharing the top thought of the day, you're sharing what's already happening in the conversation, being driven by your participants, not being driven by you. It's nothing that people wouldn't be seeing if they joined the exchange. Obviously, if you joined the exchange, or if you sent out a reminder that said, we have this much participation so far, we only want you to talk about this one issue for the remainder of it, then you're changing the direction. So if you can be really open-ended and be really clear, this is what participants have shared so far, what else do you want to add in as a participant? Not, this is what leadership says so far. And so just framing it in that way of inclusive participation focused, that can kind of bypass that issue of steering the conversation or driving it in a different direction. And so the third question here was, I was asked to jump back into an exchange to star more comments. Seems like I was offered the same ones I had already starred, and it was pretty frustrating. And that's something interesting to consider with the participation experience. And so think about when you're designing an exchange and you have that option to set participation sign up as on or as off. If you leave it as off and someone joins the exchange again from the same browser and the same device, Thoughtexchange can recognize them based on the cookies on that browser. But if they join it from a different device or a different browser, then Thoughtexchange counts them as a different person and might show them some of the things they've already seen, just because it's not tracking anything. It's respecting that confidentiality and that anonymity. But if you do think that's really important, then you can turn participation sign on to required. And that way people only see the thoughts that they haven't seen before. And so when you're thinking about that and deciding between the two, it's that leaving it as off is more confidential and anonymous, but with that, not more confidential, but it feels more confidential and anonymous for the participant. But with that comes the fact that without tracing who is participating that first time, if they join from a different device and a different browser, we have no way of knowing if they are a different person or if they're the same person just using a different device. And so maybe that can also be something that you prompt in your reminder messaging. Maybe you say, please join from the same device and browser if possible. Or if you really want to get really specific on that, you're running with a small group who feels confident about using Thoughtexchange, you could set participation login to required. And then the final question is, when jumping back in, is it also possible to add more thoughts of my own? It sometimes takes me a while to think. And I would say absolutely. As leaders, we can participate in our exchanges as kind of a twofold thing. So first, us sharing our thoughts and having other people rate our thoughts and rating thoughts builds empathy. If we're a part of an organization and we're asking an organization-wide question, there's no reason why we can't participate in the exchange the same way that we would in something like a town hall, a meeting, etc. And then the other thing for you as a leader is that's an opportunity to do some gut checking. And so maybe you share a thought, maybe you think, I love this policy, and you pop that in there and your thought rates down to the bottom. That can be a real empathy or learning moment. Is your gut check in line with how participants are thinking, or is your agreement kind of engaged there too? So I would encourage you that if you're asking people to hop in again to your exchange, that you're also practicing that and hopping back into the exchange too. So those are all of the details about reminders. We had a nice quick short Q&A period today. What I want to show you as well and to talk about are that there are some new virtual events popping up this week. Obviously, with the COVID-19 pandemic that's happening right now and the changes to being suddenly remote, we're seeing a lot of organizations shift quite drastically. So we're doing what we can to support that. And so for that, one thing that we're doing is on the 25th, we're having a webinar called Trust in Leadership in a Time of Crisis. And as leaders, I would recommend that you all attend that, register for it. It's only 45 minutes. And then the other thing that we're doing as well, and feel free to share this out with your networks, is we are offering Thoughtexchange for free for any organization that wants to run an exchange about COVID-19. They can sign up just directly on our website, so thoughtexchange.com, and there's a tool to walk them through them. The reason that we're doing it is this is our opportunity to help in a time of crisis. As you already know, as leaders, Thoughtexchange can engage people in a different way, can build empathy. And so tools and conversations around this topic right now are really powerful. So share that out with your network, and they're welcome to sign up and to run those exchanges as they need to. And I really want to thank all of you for taking time out of your Monday morning. You're welcome to pop off. Marcel, I see that you had a question in the chat that I will address here. So can you confirm that the thoughts when we jump back in are listed in the order they were received rather than having the most recent ones bubble to the top? Good question. And so thoughts are actually shown to participants according to two different algorithms. One randomizes them based on the time that they're entered into the exchange so that they're not seen sequentially. That prevents those at the start getting more ratings and those at the end not getting any ratings. So they're shuffled according to that so that participants see different thoughts and a wide variety depending on the time period that they're entered in. And then the other algorithm is a topic algorithm. So it tries to show them thoughts with different topics or themes that might be popping up to really build that participant empathy and get a holistic understanding of the whole conversation. And so by no means is someone walking in and just answering thoughts one by one. All right, so what I'll do now is I'm going to stop recording and sharing.